Folks, it's me, Denny Carter from Rotoworld and NBC Sports, coming at you for the Week 11. Got that right? Week 11 Fantasy Football Q&A, where you ask me who to play and who to trade and who to bench and what you should do with your life going forward from here. And I have answers to everything. So you throw it out there. I'm going to answer it correctly every time. That's what I get paid to do. Thank you for those of you listening on the podcast. This is available wherever podcasts are sold, wherever you access those things. You can also check out the live stream on every Friday at noon on the NFL and NBC YouTube channel. Excuse me while I take a sip of my coffee. I want to say real quick while I wait for folks to fill up the chat here with questions. I want to say quickly that two things. Yes, I am wearing what's called a jean shirt. Today on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, Matthew Berry seemed to be thrown off by my jean shirt. And I don't blame Matthew, actually. It's a weird shirt. And honestly, it's like one of those shirts where I'm not sure about it. My wife got it for me last year. I've worn it on and off, over the last year. I've maybe worn it like 3 or 4 times, right? And, I went with it today. I still don't know. I don't know. It's, I think it's a dad look. I think it's a cool dad look. I can go in public with this thing on and say, like, I'm not a regular dad. I'm a cool dad, maybe. It kind of looks like a jean jacket, though, which is weird to wear inside. So I'm unsure about the shirt, I have to say. And just one more thing before we get started. I see the questions are coming in at a rapid pace. This whole thing where every time the Ravens are on national TV and they cut to commercial or they come back from commercial and they show some form of edible crab, right? Crab cake, soft shell crabs, a bunch of crabs crawling all over each other in a tank somewhere in Baltimore. We're actually Marylanders, and I'm a lifelong Marylander. We're not that weird about crabs. At least I don't think we are. Like, we don't have like pet crabs. I just want to be clear on that. That went out of style like at least 20, 30 years ago. No one has pet crabs anymore. Okay. No, when you're walking the streets, the suburbs of Maryland, you see very few people these days with a leash on their crab walking it down the street. It just doesn't really happen. It's kind of antiquated. So we're not that weird anymore about crabs. And you say, well, but you eat them often. I wouldn't say that. At most, like in the summer months, we only eat crabs like 4 to 5 times a week. So it's not that much, is what I'm saying. So just know, if you're from a different part of the country and you're unfamiliar with Maryland culture and the way we say "oh," weirdly, even I find myself doing that, and I have a very non-regional dialect for a Marylander because I didn't grow up in the northern part of Maryland. But yeah, we're not super strange about crabs. Crab cakes, maybe we have 3 to 5 times a month. So there you go. Okay, let's get to your questions. You can check out all my work on Rotoworld. This morning I published the funnel defense report where I looked at the Saints-Browns game, the Colts-Jets, the Steelers-Ravens, and the Jaguars-Lions. all of which feature funnel defenses, either run funnels or pass funnels, and who might benefit from those matchups. So let's get to your. Oh, and also I'm going to reference you a few times today to the Rotoworld football show. The Thursday show that I do with Kyle Dvorak and Pat Doherty, Roto Pat. We get in depth into the matchups for week 11. So I'm going to reference you guys to that as we go along. And also one more thing. I promise I'm going to answer some dang questions. If you see news happening, breaking about player availability for week 11 during this stream, please throw it in the chat. It helps me out because I cannot do two things at once. Nicholas is in the chat. He says, "Hey, Benjamin, hey, look, only my parents call me by, by my Christian name, Benjamin. Clearly, that is the proper name for Denny. Benjamin, should I?" Reminds me of that Office scene where Michael is trying to be really formal with Jim after Jim becomes the co-manager. It's like, James, Jim, Jimothy. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to laugh at The Office. It's far too basic. Should I start Bo Nix or Russell Wilson in my Superflex? I mean, yeah, I like both. And this is a really tough one because the Falcons don't pressure the passer at all, and we saw that last week with Derek Carr. So Nix should just be able to sit back there and pick this Atlanta defense apart. He rushes. I like him a lot. I think I would go with him over Russell because I think there's still a chance that the Steelers are just going to be really stubbornly run first here against the Ravens, even though the Ravens can be had downfield, especially. And that's sort of Russell Wilson's specialty right now. I see more. I see a wider path to a really solid game for Bo Nix than I do Wilson, if that makes sense. I would go with Nix. Laplandish, big boss dog. All right. Help me, he says. Big boss dog. Well, you call me big boss dog, so I have no choice. Is Harrison Butker's replacement, Spencer Schrader, worth a dice roll over guys like, what is his name, McManus? I can't remember his first name right now. I'm having brain lock. Jason Sanders or Younghoe Koo. Brandon McManus is his name. That's a tough one. So yeah, Harrison Butker going to be out for at least 4 weeks after injuring his knee. Out of those, I would probably lean. It's hard to recommend Koo right now because he's missed 5 of his last 7 field goal attempts. And so the kicker process is this: we want guys attempting lots of field goals. And it doesn't really matter if they're making them or not. I know that sounds incredibly dumb, and you're probably like turning off the stream as I speak. But hear me out. But there is a point where you start to get concerned with like the yips, and I feel like Koo has entered yips territory. So I'm not gonna recommend him here. Jason Sanders is in a good spot. Go with him. Russell Wilson or Justin Herbert. I wrote up Herbert and the Chargers offense in the regression files this week, if you'd like to check that out. I'm sure my NBC Sports colleague Cris will throw my articles in the chat here momentarily, but I would go with Russ here. It makes me a little nervous that with Gus Edwards back last week, that the Chargers really went what the Zoomers would call giga ultra run heavy against the Titans. I feel like they might do this here. And the Cincinnati defense can be had on the ground. Herbert could still be efficient. He had 9 rushing attempts last week. He had a designed rush inside the 10-yard line that he took in for a touchdown. That's awesome. And so I do like Herbert in a vacuum, but I would go with Russ there. Taysom or Gesicki. I think it has to be Taysom Hill because I believe T. Higgins is going to be back this week for the Bengals. And, Gesicki's splits with and without T. Higgins are like apocalyptic. So I'm good with Taysom Hill in that case. Greg McDonald is in the chat. Jamison Williams, Quentin Johnston, or Ricky Pearsall. Pick one. So Quentin Johnston's in a good spot because the Bengals have been getting crushed by outside receivers, and Quentin Johnston plays almost exclusively on the boundary. Jamison Williams, meanwhile, takes on a Jacksonville defense allowing the second highest completion rate over expected. There's a nerdy stat for you. On deep shots, on passes of at least 20 yards downfield. The problem is that, the Lions are probably not going to throw it much here because they're not going to have to. The Lions have a 45% pass rate while leading this year. This profiles as a game where Jared Goff, throws 17 passes. So you're hoping one, you're hoping Jamison Williams hits one downfield, preferably for a touchdown. Jamison, if you're listening, your boy could use that. Me, in a 14-team league where I'm down pretty bad. I'll be honest with you, Jamison. I'm down bad. I need you. I need you in the worst way. So I would lean Jamison, actually. All right. Kicker question. Sound the alarms. Thank you. Kicker question. Cameron Dicker. Do I pivot to John Parker Romo or Kansas City's new kicker, Spencer Schrader? I know John Parker Romo, the 5th, had a big game last week. I think, yes, we're going with Cameron Dicker. All right, Patrick Mell is in the chat. Patrick Mell says, no fantasy questions. Who you got tonight? Mike Tyson or Logan Paul? I heard, look, as a millennial, no choice but to root for Mike Tyson, right? Like, I'm sorry. Like, it should be illegal for a millennial to root for a Zoomer like Logan Paul. So, but, this fight's not going to be real, right? It's not going to be like an actual fight, right? I can't imagine that it will be. Also, how do you watch this thing? How do you watch it? To spend $100 to watch 8 seconds of a fight? I ain't doing all that. Unless it's on an NBC-owned property, then I'm going to be watching the whole thing, buddy. I don't think it is, though. Big robe dog. I'm not wearing a robe. Jordan Love or Bo Nix. And of course it's Nix. It is Nix. Thank you for asking. Also, should I jam Dowdle in over Hopkins? You should not. You should not jam Dowdle. What? Den Dog is in the building. It's true. It's true. Laplandish says, who would you rather stash? Mostert, Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Trey Benson. I would rather stash Jalen Warren. Yes. Even though Jalen Warren was added to the injury report on Thursday, which is always fun, aka not fun at all. The person says, I have Drake London, DK Metcalf, and Mike Evans. Should I try to trade any of these guys for George Pickens? I would trade London for Pickens. Makes me sick, but I would. All right. Denny, my other given name. Yes, the Zoomers are calling me Denny. Who should I play? Will Dissly, Gesicki, Taysom, Hunter. Oh my God, this is so many names. Fryermuth, Kincaid if he plays, even though. All right, yes, and Dalton Kincaid, obviously, like this viewer says, has only had one good game, and it was in college. Still riding high off of that one good game. So I think it's Taysom. You kind of knew I was going to say that. So good luck. Disley is a good play, though, because I don't think that Hayden Hurst is going to play. And when Hayden Hurst plays, Disley's a little bit iffy. When he doesn't, it's Disley's season for some reason. I don't know why. No offense to Will Disley, but, you know, should an offense revolve around Will Disley? Many are asking, and many are saying no. That's Lanny Horn is in the chat. Taking your advice to trade Cade Otton for Cortland Sutton, but any thoughts on Otton? I do have thoughts on Otton. Look, I don't know the rest of your roster, Lanny. Cade Otton is going to be a legendary PPR scam going forward. That's what I would say. This Bucs team has the second highest pass rate over expected. Their defense stinks, so they're going to be chasing points constantly in the second half of the season. Cade Otton benefits from all of that. Even when Mike Evans returns, I think he'll still be a good play. So I don't know. I don't know if that helps you at all. All right, Beans, Merry Christmas. Well, I'll save that Merry Christmas for when it's actually Christmas, because for better or worse, it is not. This person says, I'm down bad. Pick PPR, full PPR, pick one. Brian Thomas, Jacoby Myers, DJ Moore. So the Raiders offense is becoming weirdly decent for fantasy, because we know that Gardner Minshew is going to throw to one of two guys, Brock Bowers or Jacoby Myers. That's it. Like Trey Tucker, figment of our imagination. Okay. Nobody else is working in here into the pass game, right? It makes me sort of confident with Myers. I would actually go with Myers here. I know it's so depressing because, you know, DJ Moore is dust, many are saying. And through no fault of his own. His quarterback is not good. All right. Pick three, Jefferson. Don't put Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua in a pick three, man. I love you, but you're playing those guys. Metcalf, BTJ, or London. So pick three. Okay, well, Jefferson and Nacua must plays, and I go with Metcalf. Have fun. Have fun with that. All right. Jack says CMC and Cook. So James Cook, CMC and James Cook for AJ Brown, Dobbins and Dell. No. I wouldn't do that. Gus Edwards being back is big for Dobbins in a bad way. You know, I'd rather just stick with CMC and Cook if it's all the same. Yeah, this person in the chat says weak coffee makes for strong takes, and it's true. I have very weak coffee. Takes are as strong as ever. Chris Sales in the chat says lighthearted kicker question today. He. Dicker the kicker or Cowboy Aubrey, or should I re-roster Groupie? Groupie's not a bad play. Saints kicker against the Browns. I think it's probably should be Dicker. Yeah, we all just have to collectively let go of Aubrey. I know it was like super fun to have a kicker who was regularly putting up like 15 and 20 plus fantasy points. That was awesome. And it just drove your competition insane when this would happen. Because I mean, nothing triggers fantasy. I'll be real. Nothing triggers fantasy dudes more than a kicker putting up a bunch of points. It's not a real win. Your kicker scored a lot of points. Well, part of the game. And there's a way to evaluate kicker matchups and kicker spots. I can teach you these ways for the low, low price of $19.99. 18 payments, by the way. All at once. So no payments, really. I'm kidding. Sort of. But look, so Aubrey is done. Done with Dak out. Finished. So he should be rostered in 0% of leagues going forward. So, yeah, go with Camera Dicker. Gremlin Brotherhood is in the chat. Yeah, right. So I am, just so folks know, I'm posting to Blue Sky now, if folks would like to check that out. Yeah, thank you for this person who says I have a cool dad look. Yeah, that's right. And Chris Sales says W Dad. I love when my kid says W Dad. It's usually when I do something for him. W Dad. And he's been calling me. My son's been calling me playa a lot. I was posting about this the other day. I don't really know how to respond. I'll say, hey buddy, dinner's in 10 minutes. And he'll say, all right, playa. What? It's just, when they're babies, it's just not something that you think of. Well, one day this kid's going to call me playa. It's funny. Being a parent can be funny. All right. Deesh is in the chat. Deesh says half PPR Lad or JMO. You know what? I'm going in. I'm pretty confident in Jameson Williams' involvement and his ability to hit one deep against Jacksonville. I'm going with Jameson. All right. Full PPR, one receiver, one flex. And Downs, Ramondre, Thomas, Estime. So Downs and Ramondre, and just be done with it. All right. Eric says Tillman or Hopkins rest of season. It's Tillman. I hate to say it because I didn't break the bank for Tillman as far as waivers go, and boy do I regret that because I have a lot of receiver injuries in a couple leagues. I could use a guy like Tillman who's seeing a lot of high value targets in a Cleveland offense that has had a 71% drop back rate since Jameis Winston took over. That's good stuff. Let's see. Christopher says that my shirt is fine. Casual Friday. That's right. It's casual. I wear a business suit every other day of the week while working at home. Tie, shoes, my nice dress shoes. I polish the shoes. It's very, very weird, they say, but I want to be professional. But this is where we're being casual, folks. It's the most casual Friday possible. Half-point PPR, pick 2 between Juwan Jennings, Ced Tillman, and JSN. That's a tough one. Oh, God, I have this weird back thing. Just tightened up. I'm sorry. I'm not playing at 100%, folks. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I have a back thing. I have a headache. I took something right before the show, but I'm banged up. I am banged up. Honestly, if I had a blue medical tent in my office, I would be in it right now. I'm just being real with you right now. All right. I would go with Ced Tillman, and I would go with JSN. He's supposed to take on some sort of role. I don't know. I'm skeptical, but it is what it is. So JSN and Tillman. Michael says trade Hawkinson for D. Smith. I don't know who D. Smith is, man. Devontae Smith? I'm sorry. You have Bowers. You should be fine. You should be fine. Oh, Chris Sales. I didn't realize Chris Sales in the chat is a Marylander, the only legitimate state. Congratulations, Chris, for being from Maryland. Gregory Bryant is in the chat. As long as you're tying the look together with white New Balance sneakers or gold. I'm wearing black New Balances. Does that count? Am I still cool? Please, someone say I'm cool. All right. Person has a bizarre kicker choice to make. John Parker Romo against Tennessee. Will Lutz against. No, that's not right. Oh, yeah. Will Lutz against Atlanta or Blake Grupe. I don't know if it's bizarre. I mean, I would go with John Parker Romo the fifth. Let's see. Are Deontay Johnson, Bateman, Estime startable? Also, is Olave droppable? I don't think Olave is droppable. I mean, he suffered that terrifying brain injury 2 weeks ago. He's probably going to miss he's going to miss week 11, 12, and 13. He could be back for the fantasy playoffs, I suppose, if everything goes right. Deontay is not startable. Bateman somewhat is. So the thing with Audric Estime, yes, I get it. He had, I don't have the numbers in front of me. There's no way to find out. My interns are asleep at the wheel. I got it. Estime had 14 of 17 running back rushing attempts in week 10 against Kansas City. Javonte Williams led the backfield in pass routes. So what I'm saying is that Estime is going to be very sensitive to game script going forward and really has a very narrow path to RB2 status, if that makes sense. Because he's not going to catch any passes. He's going to have to grind it out between the 20s. He's going to have to convert on any sort of inside the 10, inside the 5 rushing attempts, which he might get. He's a big boy. And they teams like their big boys inside or near the goal line. So he's not the worst start, but I really don't even think he's an RB2. Trone Force says, I had Jaden Daniels, McLaurin, and Barkley going last night. They scored about 5 points at the half between them. Barkley saved my week. Yeah, I mean, that's the story of fantasy football in the year 2024, right? If you had Saquon Barkley, you win. And if you don't, you're done. It's fun when it works out like that. And by fun, I mean not fun at all. So if you stumbled into Saquon Barkley in the first or second round, congratulations on all your fantasy titles. If, like me, you intentionally and very forcefully and with great principle faded Saquon, then you're done. You're toast. He's the most important fantasy player in memory right now. Nevertheless, we persist. Taylor says, do you think the deep ball ever comes back for the Dolphins? Tyreek Hill has one downfield target over the past 2 games. The Dolphins collectively have a 50% target share for all of their wide receivers combined. Only 2 teams have a lower target share for wideouts. That stinks. And it explains why the Dolphins are bad. I don't know what to tell folks. I mean, you probably have to start Tyreek Hill in hopes that Tua just throws a lollipop up there and Tyreek comes down with it and takes it to the house. I don't think you have to start Jalen Waddle. You're easily starting a guy like Cedric Tillman over Waddle. Let's put it that way. Tim says, good morning. Good morning to you, Tim. I have a flex problem. Me too, by the way. Need one, a PPR between Estime, Mike Williams, or Jonnu Smith. That is a problem because I don't know which one to say. Ugh. I mean, Jonnu Smith is over 6 targets in 4 straight games. Is it him? So with Mike Williams, you really have to project him for way more playing time, far more, pass routes against the Ravens. I think he ran 3 pass routes last week. his one target was a 32-yard touchdown. I know you all saw that in the highlights. That's a thin bet. It feels pretty thin. I could see, instead of 3 routes, I could see him running 12 routes this week. I don't think he gets like a full complement. And I talked about Estime, a minute ago. So I'd lean Jonnu. It feels gross, but pick 2 wide receivers between Tank Dell, Cedric Tillman, Jawan Jennings. I would go with Jennings and Tillman there. Dowdle or Downs in the flex. I think it's Downs. He clearly is the wide receiver 1 in Indianapolis. Dowdle's facing beyond the crazy game script that's almost sure to take hold here between Dallas and Houston. There's the fact that Houston is shutting down every single rushing attack that they face, even the good ones. Now they're facing an awful one in Dallas. So Dowdle is going to have to catch like 5 to 7 passes and be pretty efficient with those opportunities in order to be better than Downs. So I feel more comfortable with Downs. All right. Michael M says pick 1 in the flex, Chase Brown or Ken Walker. I talked about this on the Rotoworld football show on Thursday. The Seahawks were under their expected drop back rate in the 2 games before their bye week. Teams are leaning pretty hard on the run against the Niners. So I think Walker is the play here. Chase Brown is a volume monster though. So it makes me a little, if you can work both guys in, that'd be cool, but I understand. If not, then just go with Ken Walker. All right. Rod says drop Mike Williams, Josh Palmer, Juju, or Blake Corum. Drop one of those guys. You're dropping Josh Palmer. Yeah, that's pretty easy. Drop Palmer. Need 2 of the 5. Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, Darnell Mooney, and JSN. Oh, goodness. You're going to make me not say Tyreek after I just said you need to play Tyreek. Wow. This question was designed to expose me as a fraud. Appreciate that. Yeah, these are good options, man. Let me check. I'm going to check the metrics real quick. Check the old spreadsheet. Well, it's not telling me much. Well, Denver's a little bit of a pass funnel. We saw the Chiefs go mega pass heavy last week, which is weird for them. So I feel like Mooney. For me, it's Mooney and Kupp. As weird as that sounds. This person in the chat says Juan Dixon, Steve Blake. Terps, #Terps. I am a Terp. I went to the University of Maryland College Park. And I recall seeing Steve Blake in the line at McDonald's before the new student union was built. This was the student union that I think was built in like the 70s, and it was glorious. I mean, it had a very 70s aesthetic. And it had a McDonald's in there. And my guy, Steve Blake, he loved his McDonald's. And he wore a hoodie every day. And he had that hood over his head. And sometimes he didn't look too well. But we love our Steve Blake. I also stood in line in the bookstore behind Vernon Davis once. And I can confirm that man is large. Like crazy, crazy big. It's like there were like 5 feet between his shoulder blades. I didn't understand it. Funny thing about Vernon Davis, I remember reading in the student newspaper, the Diamondback, which I wrote for briefly, that the Maryland football team actually banned players from trying to tackle Vernon Davis during practices because too many guys were getting hurt trying to tackle Vernon Davis. So he wore a special jersey, if I remember correctly. where it's like, do not try to tackle this man because you will get hurt. Big guy. Philip Fry's in the chat. Jean shirts for the win. Jonnu Smith or Dawson Knox with Kincaid out. Dawson Knox is a good play. I have some stats on Dawson Knox if you wouldn't mind me reading them to you. Oh, no. I seem to have lost them. Oh, God. Oh, what did I do? All right. I'm going to try to remember them. No team has given up more receiving yards to tight ends than the Chiefs. The Chiefs are allowing the third most tight end receptions on the year. And lots of checkdowns against the Chiefs. So that should all be pretty good for Knox. I think Knox is a really good play. I actually would play him. I think I'd play him over Jonnu. Scott's in the chat. Scott says, good afternoon, fellow deck haver. I have a deck. One of the biggest decks on the Eastern Seaboard. You guys, I mean, you can see it. I post pictures of the deck online. Frymouth or Disley. I would go with Disley there. You're welcome. Just scarfed down 10 cans of chickpeas, and now I can't get off the toilet. I appeared on the Shipcast podcast. Not let me start that over. The Ship Chasing podcast with Pat Crane, former Rotoworld, my buddy Pete Overzet, and of course Ben Gretsch. And I talked about my love of chickpeas, and they found this very weird. They made me feel a little strange for eating chickpeas every single day of my life. You know, I see nothing wrong with it. Should I start? This person says, should I start Dowdle or Jaden Reed? I'd go with Reed. I'm not trying to play Dowdle. Jamal Lewis in the chat. Hello, Jamal. Pick 3. Stevenson, Dobbins, Achane, or Chubb. So Chubb. Okay, I'm going to get into the nerdy stats real quick right after this, which I know the folks love. Achane is a must play because of his pass game involvement. And I guess Dobbins, but Chubb is in a good spot. Pick 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Bench Stevenson. Go with Dobbins, Achane, Chubb. That's what I'd say there. All right, we're gonna get real quick into rush yards before contact, and actually, I'm gonna whittle it down this week to weeks 6 to 10, which kind of gives us a more zoomed in view of how teams are defending the run in recent weeks rather than the whole season. This is what we do once we get to this point in the season. So just so folks know, and I know if you tune into this podcast or this stream, podcast, whatever, every week that you know what I'm about to say, but yards before contact per rush attempt is a good indicator of soft run defenses that can be exploited. So from week 6 to 10, the Chicago Bears have given up the highest rate of yards before contact per rush. That's why Josh Jacobs is in a great spot this week. Any way you cut it. Panthers are second. Of course, they're not playing anybody. They're on bye. Seahawks are third. So McCaffrey could go berserk here. I think the Niners had like 250 rushing yards last time they played Seattle. So it could be real good for him. So this is where I get to Nick Chubb. So the Saints, since week 6, are fourth. They have given up the fourth highest rate of rush yards before contact. They are a quietly very soft run defense. And I wouldn't be surprised if coming off the bye week, if they at least try to feature Nick Chubb a little more in this Cleveland offense. He could, I could see him hitting a big run or two against the Saints. So don't dismiss him as an option. Cowboys are 5th, so Joe Mixon's going to go berserk, obviously. Giants are 6th, not playing. Commanders are 7th in rush yards before contact per attempt. We saw Saquon Barkley go nuclear on Thursday night. Vikings are 8th. That doesn't make you too excited, but it's just worth noting. The Bills are 9th in this category. I think Kareem Hunt is in a quietly extremely good spot, actually. Let's get to the bottom of this list of yards before contact per rush attempt. The Broncos are best in this category. I mean, they've allowed the fewest yards before contact per attempt. So it is not a good spot in any way for Bijan Robinson, but you got to play him, obviously. Houston is second best here. That's why it's part of the reason why I think Dowdle is just a fade. Eagles are third best. Saw them really bottle up the Commanders. Rams are fourth best in this category. Rush yards before contact. So it's like Ramondre Stevenson, again, has like a very narrow path to fantasy relevance this week. And the Niners are fifth best. And, it is not a good matchup on paper for Ken Walker, yet you're playing him. Curious. This person says, trade DeAndre Swift for Cortland Sutton. It depends on your team. I mean, if you're like down real bad at receiver, I guess that makes sense. Lindorphins is in the chat. Happy Friday to you too. Which 2 wide receivers would you hold on to in half PPR? Judy, Watson, Worthy, Quentin Johnston. Which ones would I hold on to? I would hold on to. Man. I guess Worthy and Johnston. I guess, yeah. I mean, Christian Watson is not someone to hold on to. Are we sure Jaden is good? Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's clearly injured. Like, that's pretty clear. I actually looked up some numbers for you guys on Jaden Daniels, folks who are wondering, is it completely over for him? The rushing is the difference, mostly. And what we had over the first 4 weeks of the season, he logged a rushing attempt. Jaden Daniels logged a rushing attempt on 33% of his dropbacks. And that's what I was anticipating going into the season. That's what I was anticipating throughout the season. And over the past 3 weeks, that rushing rate has dropped to 15%. So that's a big difference. And I think it has to do with his health. The team is pretending like he's not hurt. He's pretending like he's not hurt. I'm skeptical. For fantasy, I do think probably it's time, to start dabbling, a little bit here and there. Like, no one would have done this, but like, Bo Nix over Jaden Daniels this week, I don't think is the craziest thing in the world. All right, folks, let's get on with your questions. Half PPR Debo or Cedric Tillman. I still go with Debo. Chris Sales in the chat once again with Dalton Kincaid ruled out. Should I pick up Knox or Disley or play Kraft? Okay, this is hard. Now with Tucker Kraft, you have basically like a very high variance tight end option, right? He's simply not going to see a high target game ever. Okay, so at most, you're projecting him for 5 targets, 6 targets. He is the sort of playmaker, the sort of explosive pass catcher in a good Green Bay offense that could make the most out of 5 or 6 targets. He could turn that into 70, 80 yards and a touchdown or whatever. But he's just, it's going to be frustrating to figure out when he's going to go off and when he's going to let you down. I tend to shy away from that profile unless you're going into the week down big or the algorithm says that you're a big underdog. Maybe then Kraft is the play. But I would go with Knox actually over these options. All right, let's see. Perry says good morning. Must be from the West Coast. Must be nice. It's probably warm over there. It's no longer warm here. Please pick up 2 receivers, full PPR. Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Tyreek. Good grief. What is this? Wait, how did you end up with all three of those guys? Tillman and Ridley. Wow. Only 2? That's wild. I mean, I guess you have to go with Lamb, and I like Devontae Adams. I wrote him up in the regression files if you want to check it out. Alpha is in the chat. This person's holding on to Tank Bigsby and Alexander Madison. Should I drop and go for insurance backs? Not sure if the two will be of use going forward. It's not a bad idea. So the idea, like with zero RB drafting, is you want to draft other people's insurance back, right? So like if you don't have Bijan Robinson, you get Tyler Algier, right? If you don't have Kyron Williams, you get Blake Corum. That was the thought. Oh, another one that actually worked out for a little bit. If you don't have Ken Walker, you get Zach Charbonnet, right? You just slot him in. This is the time of year where I think you need to shift, and having insurance for your current running backs can be important. So yes, I wouldn't mind dropping either of those guys. People are telling me that the Tyson fight is on Netflix. It's free on Netflix. Yeah. I'm sure I will be not watching that then. Bucks defense rest of the year. I mean, they're terrible. I would say no. Let's see. It's not a shirt if you have to wear a shirt under it. That's a good point. But it is a shirt in that it has buttons. Does that make a difference? Let's see. Q says, who should I start at running back 2, Pollard or Spears? I guess it has to be Pollard. I got a kicker question. Like I said, you got to forget about Aubrey. Go with Cameron Dicker there. Tucker Kraft or Evan Ingram. This is going to sound gross, but I would go with Ingram. I wrote him up in the final defense report. He was targeted. I know last week was very bleak for the Jacksonville offense. I understand that. But it's hard to ignore a tight end who's targeted on 35% of his pass routes, like Evan Ingram was last week. And so I feel like he's locked in for double-digit targets here against Detroit. So total scam PPR wise. Michael says McBride is on bye. This person Michael says I have Knox, but I could get Jonnu. I said earlier I would lean Knox over Jonnu. Jennings or Downs. I would go with Downs. I know, even with Richardson back. Herbert, Geno, Goff, and Russell Z. Wilson the 5th. Pick one. That's a tough one. I would go with Russ. Let's see. I already answered that. What is the equivalent of your son calling you playa at this age and something you would call your dad? Oh, yeah. Okay. I think probably I would have called my parents like dude, like a very like Ninja Turtles influenced dude sort of thing. Lewis says Romeo Doubs or Mike Williams. I'd go with Doubs. Mostert, one of the Denver running backs. Mostert has 0 carries. It feels like he was like benched. So I don't think you can play him with any confidence. I would go with Estime. I'm trying to get through these. We have about 9 minutes left. I need to choose between CeeDee Lamb, Jacoby Myers, Jason, Cedric Tillman, James Cook. Well, what, you can only bench one? Is that the deal? You're thinking of benching CeeDee Lamb? I don't know about that, sir. I do not know about that. I would bench Myers. I mean, he's in a good spot, but I'm not benching CeeDee Lamb. Let's Lanny, I know you're dying. You're just dying over this Otten for Sutton thing, man. I'm sorry, I can't. Otten's gonna be good. I don't know what to say. Michael, should I drop Elijah Moore and pick up Mike Williams? No, Elijah Moore is the play over Mike Williams. Elijah Moore has 21 targets over his past 2 games. The Browns are passing at an incredibly high rate. Elijah Moore is running all the routes in this offense. So there you go. You're playing. Elijah Moore is a nice pickup in like 14-team leagues this week. Hayden Hurst practiced yesterday. Well, nevertheless. Tillman or Myers? Jake asks. I would go with Tillman. Question is, what running back is a reasonable trade target for Brian Robinson Jr.? The context. I'm sorry. That's a tough one to answer on the fly, buddy. Nate says, would I trade Jonathan Taylor for James Conner in PPR? I would. Well, no. Wait. No. Here's why. Jonathan Taylor's stats, everything, success rate, EPA per rush, the whole gamut is way better with Anthony Richardson under center than with Joe Flacco. So if this Colts stick by what they say and start Richardson for the rest of the year, then you would think Taylor would take advantage of that, right? I mean, Connor's a good option, but my preference is Taylor there. Think I could trade Reed for Ridley. I'd much rather have Ridley. Ridley is like a top, like conservatively top 15 option rest of year because he's seeing just an obscene rate of targets and air yards in this Tennessee offense. So yeah, if you can do that, do it. Adam says, for a proper education, let him know you ain't a playa, you just crush a lot. I should let him know that, but I won't because I'm his dad. Jerry says, Myers or Waddle. Oh, it's Myers, buddy. Jerry also says, Njoku or Hawkinson. It's Hawkinson. Cameron, half PPR, Estime or Spears. Yeesh. I guess Estime. Gino or Goff. I'd go Gino. Yeah, there you go. And let's see. One more question from Jack. Start James Cook, Cedric Tillman, or JSN. I like Tillman, man. And James Cook is in a real bad spot. I'll be honest. Let's see. Tom says trade Chuba and Waddle for Metcalf and Chubbs. Chubbs, the of course character from Happy Gilmore. I get it. I would rather have Nick Chubb and DK Metcalf going forward than Chuba Hubbard and Waddle. Hope that helps. Full PPR. Shakir, Jamison, Pollard, Tillman. I know I've been saying Tillman. Shakir's very interesting. Let me I mentioned this on the Rotoworld football show on Thursday. If you all would like to check that out. So he's running almost exclusively from the slot over the past 2 games. That's a big change in his usage in the Buffalo offense. He's being targeted on 29% of his routes over the past 3 games. It's crazy high. Lots of short receptions. Kansas City is allowing the 6th highest completion rate over expected on pass attempts between 1 and 10 yards. In other words, it's Shakir season. I would go with Shakir here. Estime or Waddle in half PPR. I'd go with Waddle. Ugh, gross, but it's true. Evaluate this trade. I will. You received Tillman, Jennings, and Walker for Chase Brown and Neighbors. It kind of depends on if Ken Walker gets that pass catching role back. That's close. It's real close. I don't think anybody lost this trade. I would slightly lean toward your side, but Chase Brown and Neighbors are obviously excellent fantasy options. Estimator Waddle, I said Waddle. All right, guys, like 4 minutes ish here. Running backs. I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't see. Okay, gotcha. All right. Let's see. Greg Bryan is in the chat. I was on the same flight as Jerome Bettis one time. I wanted to just say, "What's up, bus?" and get a handshake when I passed him on the way to my seat, but he was on the phone. Ah, well. You know what? The intent was there. The intent. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate the kind words from Michael M. Etienne or Warren. I would go with Warren if he plays. Etienne and Bigsby are like fantasy non-entities this week against Detroit. I just really don't see a path. I don't know, unless you're just completely, absolutely desperate, like I am in one league where I have to start Bigsby because I literally don't have anybody else to start. This person says Shakir or Tank Dell. I would go with Khalil Shakir for reasons mentioned a couple minutes ago. Tua or Winston. I'm going with Jameis Winston. It's a good matchup. The Saints are a run funnel. It's a revenge game. Buddy, get Winston rolling. It might not be pretty, but what is with the Browns, really? Brett Mason says many are saying it's Dawson Knox season. It's true. It's true. Chris Sales back in the chat. Saints, Packers, or Titans defense. Saints, Packers, or Titans. I think Packers. The Packers are the play against the Bears. Elijah Moore or Nick Westbrook-Akini. I think that's how you say his name. It's Elijah Moore, Eddie. It's Elijah M. Moore, the 6th. Connor, rest of season. Yeah, right. No, he does have a good. I know he has a good schedule. Okay, Addison. Okay, play Addison or pick up and start Kayshon Boutte. Tipton. No. Tucker, Hollis, McMillan. No, just go with Addison. I think that's what you got to do. I'm trying to get through here. I'm trying to get a lot of your questions, as many as possible. DeAndre Hopkins, Jennings, Thomas Tillman, pick 2 for PPR. Hopkins and Tillman. Lanny wants to know Goff or Knicks. I think it's Knicks. Riaz says full PPR start 2. Dobbins, Jacobs, DK. Okay, all right. You go with DK and you go with Jacobs. And then Caleb or Richardson. Oh, come on. I'd go with Anthony Richardson. Oh, that's such a rough one. Wow. AT is in the chat, says trade away Bowers and Estime for Walker. I have Andrews and McBride. I mean, could you trade away? I don't know. Wow, God, you really stocked up on tight ends, brother. If you're running back needy, I would do that. Yeah. Go ahead and do that. I'm trying to see if I missed any. I'm scrolling back a little bit here. Any hope for players like Worthy and Kincaid? No. Sorry. All right, folks. Well, that'll do it. I'll answer Nick's and then get out of here. Nick says have to drop 1 for Njoku. Jordan Mason, Deontay Kraft. Deontay Johnson's not going to be anything in this Ravens offense. I am convinced. All right. Hope that helps. Thank you for joining me for the Week 11 Fantasy Football Q&A on the NBC. Shoot, I messed it up. The NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You can find all my work on Rotoworld. Check out the Rotoworld Football Show for more in-depth analysis than me just listing off players to play for Week 11. Until next time, good luck to you and only you in Week 11.